It's my great honor and my awesome and terrifying responsibility to moderate as president of the Asia Institute, one of the most important seminars held in recent months, perhaps in recent history. For this seminar, how to create a momentum for peace and stability with Russia and China, we have assembled a remarkable group. I do not have to inform the honorable presenters who have taken their time to join us today about the danger of the current moment. But there may be those listening, and most certainly there are those in their comfortable homes watching videos on their smartphones who do need to be reminded of the unprecedented dangers of escalating confrontation with Russia and by extension, increasingly, with China as well. Perhaps some think that in this age of fake news, that all news is fake, and that conflicts and wars are unreal, make-believe. Sadly, Virginia, the conflicts of the current moment are no fairy tale, and the exponential development of technology means that the scaling up to world war is not hard at all, even if those never intended that consequence. Some may think that Ukraine is so far away and the issue so obscure that it could not possibly impact us. But we already know from the pandemic that such an assumption is blatantly false. Today, we will ask the most outstanding minds, the most renowned experts on international security to give us their truly honest opinions about what can still be done to create a positive cycle towards peace in this moment on the edge of war. Let us give them our full attention and be prepared to act without fail, without fear on what they recommend. The conflict with Russia and with China is not about faraway places, about people wearing exotic dress and speaking in foreign tongues. The conflict is about your children, your neighbors, your country, and our common future. I'd like to start first by inviting General retired In-Bom Chun, who is at the National Bureau of Asian Research, also works as Vice President at MIG Ali Korea Chapter at the Air Force Association, and is a member of the Advisory Council at the Global SOF Foundation. General Chun, please.
Thank you, Emmanuel. It's been too long since we've seen each other. I'd first like to thank all of you for inviting me to this session. And quite frankly, my outlook is pretty gloomy because right now, things are not looking very positive.
Right.
Initially, decades ago, I thought the Americans were paranoid about Chinese aggression. And I was also in the mind that it was the United States that gave China the opportunity to develop, thinking that a economically developed China connected throughout the world would be a positive influence to world economy. And when that happened, that there would be no incentive for aggression. I think the same kind of assumptions were for the Russians as well. Although there were threats of aggression by Putin's administration, and we had seen various actions such as Georgia and Chechens, it was mainly considered Russia tidying up its home affairs. But with this invasion of the Ukraine, it was clearly that Putin had underestimated the resolve of the United States. Also, the vague standing of Biden, his remarks that he would not be using military force, gave the impression to Putin that it would not be that difficult to invade and get his objectives within Ukraine. All of these assumptions were wrong. It just goes to prove that world leaders like Putin can make these grievous errors, which is leading to this human tragedy in the Ukraine. And that Xi Jinping's power struggle and his goals for the legacy of China is also very dangerous. The situation in the Ukraine logically should be ending by now. The Russians have reached their military culminating point. The Ukrainians have also, I think, expended much of their fighting power at this point, and it should be ending, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen anytime soon without anybody mediating peace. So the chain reaction is that it's going to come to our homes pretty soon. It's already coming. A flight from the UK to Korea now costs 25% more. And it takes from 12 now to 15 to 16 hours. And bread prices, rice prices are rising. Unfortunately, Putin's adventure into the Ukraine is going to permanently change Europe. And the delicate global supply chain that was established is now under threat because of not only 2 years of COVID, but now with this war in Europe, it's caused I'm not sure we're going to be able to come back to the old days of everybody being connected. Some are saying that globalization is now dead. So it's very bleak. Then now we have the United States, who is now waking up and engaging with allies and potential allies like India, and forming the Quad. And of course, India has its own national interests and has not been as stern as it could be against the Russians in the war in Ukraine. So it's become a very complex world. So again, to your initial thesis about how are we going to stop China and Russia, the only option now is to take one side and hope for the best and preparing for the worst. That's the only option that I see. This means strengthening the alliance with the United States, strengthening engagement with neighbors like India. But in order to do so, I think India needs to be more clear in its policies of what it needs, what it plans on doing. I know it has deep roots and ties with the Russians, but let's face it, it's changing. And the more that India hesitates, it's not going to look good in the eyes of the free world. Already, some of my friends are moving away from India and going to other countries like Mexico. So I'll just stop there.
Thank you very much, General Chun. So next, opening remarks from Professor Deepak, Chair of the Center for Chinese and Southeast Asian Studies at Jawaharlal Nehru University in India. Please, Professor Deepak.
But you are muted.
You cannot hear me.
So can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Emmanuel. Thank you, Lakhvinder, for inviting me for this conference. I'm delighted to see you, all of you here, though it is my first time to interact with you. I think some of things which I gather in the face of unfolding Ukrainian crisis, these essentially will perhaps answer some of the answers of General Chun. I think first, the construct that economic interdependence among countries, it will be conducive to peace and avert war. That has been demolished completely by various examples, including the present Ukrainian crisis. Over-dependence on a particular country for supply chains has exposed the vulnerabilities of countries, especially amidst pandemic like COVID-19 and this Russia-Ukrainian war. Therefore, we see a deliberate and gradual decoupling from countries and building up new supply chains across the globe. In short term, this is perhaps answering General Chun's query whether India is clear, but it is doing at this point in time. I think in short term, this dependence will continue. However, in medium and long term, countries will move away from the present model, that is Europe's energy dependence on Russia, and also India's defense dependence on Russia. And I think I need not to bring it to notice what our external affairs minister said the other day during the national dialogue, that Europe and primarily Germany and Italy, so they have imported 70% of the
Right.
Russian oil and gas. So who is supporting the war in Ukraine for Russia? Primarily, I would say it is Europe only, and India perhaps it is at the bottom, in that hierarchy. Another thing is realignment of strategic forces is underway, and India's centrality, I would say, in economic, technological, and defense partnership in the subcontinent and in the Indo-Pacific is bound to grow. This is in response to earlier defunct understanding that India should be mindful of Chinese sensibilities in order to desire a benign behavior from China, which anyhow wasn't true according to my understanding of China. Therefore, China's ambiguity, on Russia-Ukraine war is no ambiguity according to my understanding. The war has brought Russia-China even closer, and Russian dependence on China in near future, perhaps in the midterm and long term, is bound to grow. Another thing which I think all of you will agree with me, that the UN in stopping and resolving conflict has been further diminished. Secretary General Guterres' Ukraine visit has spelled it even louder. Therefore, for restoring its credibility, the reforms are must. The General Thun also mentioned about Indo-Pacific. In fact, this is the theme which I thought I will make a few points, and where so China has its perception and responses. First of all, China believes that there is a definite power shift taking place in the Indo-Pacific, which is in its favor, and hence the notion of Tongshan Xijiang, that the East is rising, the West is on the decline, a political concept pronounced by Xi Jinping. So China believes that being the representative of Eastern civilization, it is rising and will gradually replace the declining Western civilization represented by the United States. So it is the so-called Sinocentric model that sees China taking the center stage in the world affairs and prove to the world that China model of governance is the best in the model in the world. Economic supremacy of China has been reinforced time and again, and China as the biggest consumer market, trading and investment destination has been emphasized. Militarily, it demonstrates China has bridged technological gaps with the West, and that China no more is shy of flexing its muscles in the oceans as well as overland. So China taking claims, then reclamation and militarization of the South China Sea and territory across line of actual control with India is, I believe, part of this narrative. The subjective, the objective is to render the first, second, and third island chains ineffective in the Pacific Ocean, and meanwhile reinforce its presence in the fourth and fifth island chains in the Indian Ocean. So China's port building in Sri Lanka, Pakistan, and Djibouti, stationing its forces there could be seen in this context, and also its recent security deal with Solomon Islands in the Pacific Ocean. Another point I wish to make is that China considered the US as well as India, so maybe in future European countries too, as they are also planning to come and strengthen US's Indo-Pacific strategy as outsiders in the region, as these are neither located in the region nor does they have any sovereignty dispute with Southeast Asian countries in the region, according to China. Therefore, besides maintaining its hegemony and containing China, the US, according to China, has no locus standi in South China Sea. China believes that apart from controlling most of the choke points in the Pacific, the US is also attempting to control other spheres of marine territory and vital sea lines of communication, so that the US has greater maneuverability in containing China. So conversely, reclamation by China will deny that strategic space to the US, and I think they have almost pushed United States out of South China Sea by militarizing it. As regards India's engagement in Southeast Asia, China sees India's active policy in three phases. This I have taken from some of the writings of the Chinese scholars of South Asia. The first two correspond to a period when both managed to establish an equilibrium and understanding, and when India desired to strike a balance between United States and China. So this phase has been seen not very hostile to China, but India trying to get rid of its economic woes and trying to raise its economic stakes in the region. This is perhaps owing to such an equation that Wang Yi, their foreign minister, pronounced that the Quad will vanish like sea foam. The third phase, however, corresponds to the ascendance of Prime Minister Modi, the time when this equilibrium with China was lost owing to the power shift favoring China, and China's malevolent relations with India following frequent standoffs resulting in Doklam and Galwan conflicts. So India realigning its active policy and sub-regional and multilateral mechanisms like BIMSTEC, SAGAR, IORA, Quad, as has been mentioned, have been pronounced as part and parcel of India's active policy, but serving the unstated goals of India's Indo-Pacific strategy. So since China views the Indo-Pacific strategy essentially as containment of China by the United States and its allies, as a response, India's broader geopolitical ambitions have to an extent been held in check by its rivalry with China and Pakistan. So I think this is intentional response to India's maybe eastward march or whatever so they may call it. So it is also this reason Chinese scholars believe that India's strategic vision is governed by the thinking on South Asia and the Indian Ocean. Nonetheless, they are apprehensive that the Indo-Pacific strategy does give it levers to intervene in South China Sea, diminish ASEAN centrality, and oppose China's connectivity projects like MSR and overland BRI projects. My last point, I think maybe we can intervene a little later again, is according to China, India's priority would be is strategic consideration in the Indian Ocean, active engagement with Southeast Asian countries, and coordination with the US over Indo-Pacific strategy. India's engagement in Indo-Pacific, according to them, is intertwined with the kind of relationship India enjoys with the US and its allies, deterioration in relations owing to factors such as mutual distrust, India not wanting to play the second fiddle, and solid India-China defense relationship. This, according to them, would diminish India's active approach in the region. So they also admit that the fact that at present, the informal alliance, they call it, or the strategic consensus between India, US, and its allies is purely due to China factors. They also argue that if India desires China to recognize its role in Asia-Pacific region, then India must cede a certain role in Indian Ocean region to China. So therefore, I think this mutual distrust between India, China, and perhaps Russia chipping into the to the Chinese side in the especially in the medium and long term, it is going to be detrimental to the peace and security in the region. As General Chun said that he is not very clear as to what will happen to this region. I think at this point in time, I also don't know where it is heading, but certainly, as I said in beginning, that in the short term, in the medium term, India will move away from its defense dependence on Russia, and perhaps it would be in a better position to take side as rest of the world community wants India to do. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Deepak. So next, we turn to Professor Rajan, professor at College of Liberal Arts, Institute of Global Studies at Shanghai University. Please, Professor Rajan.
Thank you, Professor Emmanuel, and I'd like to also thank Professor Lakhvinder for inviting me to this very engaging dialogue on how to create a momentum for peace in Russia and China. Before I suggest some of my suggestions how to create a momentum, let me talk a little bit about how these two events, like the COVID pandemic and this Russia-Ukraine war, has created a problem for us. The one that we all talk about, that the Black Swan event, the COVID, has a kind of disrupted our supply chain. And now we are talking about the gated globalization. Now, not fully killing the globalization, but in a way that we want to limit the globalizations. The second that event that has triggered or put into a very chaotic, I would say that is Russia-Ukraine war, is also so the fault line in our international system. Now, what are those fault lines? Now, if you see this Russia-Ukraine war has shown the limit to this aligned system. This is my personal view, in a way that Ukraine was trying to be a member of European Union and NATO, and they were like kind of support from NATO that we will be helping you. But at the end, there is no help to be seen. So that also shows the limit of the alliance, that what will happen in the future. Second point is it has also diminished the role of United Nations, because we haven't seen any role played by the United Nations. The third, because we have seen this limit to the alliances, of course, there are like points or arguments given by the NATO countries that since Ukraine is not a member of the Ukraine is not a member of NATO, so we cannot defend the Ukraine. But the point is that one nuclear armed countries, Russia, whose military power is diminished, has deterred the whole NATO alliance to even defend its partner, so-called partner. Now that's in a way, it diminishes the limit of the alliance and system. And if there is no alliance is coming to help you, then there is like pressure on the countries to develop their own capability, whether it's a nuclear capability, whether it's you have a credible minimum deterrence in any way. So now we will see a kind of arms race in country. We have seen that now even Germany and Japan is discussing how to increase the spending on arms. So these three fault lines have shown that no, we have to see the problems. We have to, in a way, we have to restructure the mechanism, that how to proceed to resolve the crisis. Let me go back to a little bit about Russia and Russia problem, and then I will come to India-China problem. What we have done is we have tried to search or look for the common area that we can cooperate. This was a kind of modus operandi for India-China for a cooperation. It was also for in the backdrop of Soviet disintegration, how US and Russia had cooperated on a multiple forum. But the point is that they forget to have a convergence on the disputes and try to resolve these disputes, and that has come back again to haunt us. Now, in 2014, we have this Russia having this attacking on Ukraine and then kind of annexing the Crimea. Now, the same thing is repeating in Ukraine. Now, again, why not? We have seen this before. Of course, we have seen this, but we have not approached the problems. We try to ignore that problems. Now, what was the problem? Like we have already know that there was a kind of like an agreement or kind of thing that the NATO will not expand eastwards, like what the many scholars keep talking about. That is the kind of triggers. Now, if we have discussed this one, the problem of NATO expansion toward the east and taking the Russia into confidence in any way, that would have kind of reduced the chances of this conflict. Now, coming back to India and China, what we have done is we have adopted the tongue shopping dictum of let's forget the dispute, because this disputes have given from the past. So now what we have done is we have pushed the dispute to the future generation. So in a way, we in the present trying to kind of live in a peace that is it's a kind of like a virtual, maybe we can say it's a virtual peace, but there is no peace. We just try to push our conflicts, our problems toward our future. Now, what is happening in India, China is this problem that we have ignored in a way, or kind of keep talking without resolving is coming back again. Now, thereby we need a new mechanism. Instead of searching for a common, a converging interest, we should first look for where our interests are differing, where we are colliding. And once we figure it out, that these are the areas that we need to discuss, we need to have a common minimum points that, okay, these are the points, these are the disputes that we need to resolve. And then we can again continue with our cooperation. Now, this David Metrani concept of from the soft power to the hard power, I think is failed in India-China relationship. Now, and if you see the China-Pakistan relationship, their relationship is going in a very different way. They cooperated first at the military level. Now they are cooperating at the civil society, and maybe they will go to the people-to-people contact. So this is going very differently than what we have kind of have operated under this modus operandi of people-to-people contact, trade relationship, and then we will resolve the border crisis. But it's failed. We are nowhere again. So what we have to do is, now we have to, in my way, we have to restructure. We have to put our mechanism upside down. And now I think Indian foreign minister is also talking about that business should not be as usual like we have to do. Now, what we have to do is we have to put the problem on the table first, and then we can talk about, okay, what we need to cooperate in the future. Now, to coming directly to the conflict point, I think when we have lack of trust, I think we need to have give certain a kind of confidence building measures before we come to this point where we in 2020, when India and China is like again seeing eye to eye in the Ladakh. Now what we have to do is we have to create a kind of peace in a way that like what I'm keep repeating to myself, that we need to have a kind of create a peace zone. Like there are many scholars who are trying to keep saying that we need to first create a peace zone and thereby give a peace a chance. Instead of where you have a soldiers colliding with each other, let the local people to interact with each other. Like we have seen in the case of Nathullah, like where there is a border trade. We have seen in the case of like Kartarpur, like how this Kartarpur is a kind of becoming a role model instead of Bagha a muscular nationalism. Now, so we have to again restructure, put our mechanism upside down, and then I think we will give a peace a chance. Now, why we should give a peace a chance is again $1 million questions here. India and China is again a neighboring country, is two giants in Asia. And if these two giants keep colliding with each other, I think it's not good for even South Asian, a small South Asian country, even not good for the Southeast Asian country, because their resources are also is going west, because they are not in given a very direction to how to cooperate, how to put these resources to good in a way that how to use these resources to have infrastructure development. If there is a problem between India and China, I think Bangladesh or Sri Lanka or even Nepal are now they are in flux. They are in dilemma that what to do, whom to support, and thereby they are also a kind of devising a mechanism called what we have done, that is non-alignment approach, or what we now call it multi-alignment. It's both ways, whether you call it non-alignment or you call it a multi-alignment, the end effect is same. General Chun has already said that India needs to be a more clear in approach. I think given the scenario, the geostrategic location of India, I think, and where India is dependent on both the West side and Russia, I think it's very complicated for India to come out of this shadow, to support any part in a very strategic, clear way. So in a way, instead of having you have to take a position on Russia and Ukraine war, I think India should be a kind of a motivator to both countries to come to the table and to discuss the peace. So instead of, I think, criticizing any of those countries. I think India has a very calculated position here on in Russia-Ukraine conflict, I guess. And even our foreign minister has categorically said that this is in interest of India. At the end of the day, what the realist school of says that we have to protect our interest, to have to maximize our interest. So we should not endanger our own interest, given the fact that we are dependent militarily on Russia. Now coming to the point of how to give up momentum to this Russia and China thing. Now again, I think first, again, we need to, there's only one way is to dialogue. And I think dialogue is missing here. What we have done is from different countries, the sanctions are not working. We have seen that how ruble has gone down and then again come to the normal point. So that means sanctions are not working. And this sanction will not only hurting Russia, but it's going to hurt the neighboring countries also, like India and other countries, because we are also dealing with the Russia. So this sanction will also hurt the countries in Africa, countries in South Asia. We have seen that how the South Asian countries have voted at United Nations because they know that limit to the sanction. So in effect, let me conclude by saying that we have seen the limit to alliances, seen the limit to sanction, seen the limit to even deterrence, because any threat has not worked against Russia. So in a way, I would say that we need to sit together. We need to have a dialogue that can give us a peace in a way that we can take care of everyone's security concern. And here the key word is the security concern. So now, because this is, we are not living in a kind of 18th century or 19th century, where now this limit to this deterrence, this alliance system is giving a rise or kind of transitioning us to the multilateral system. We are entering into the multipolar. And I think if any power that is rejecting or declining or not recognizing that we are entering into a multipolar system, I think it is not going to help us. So in a way, we have to take all the stakeholders on equal footing, whether it's India, China, Russia, or Ukraine, to sit together and then kind of, we have to listen to every partners. We have to listen to every party that what are their problems are and what are their concerns are, and then only we can deal. Otherwise, we will be trapped into this system of kind of proxy war. What we have now, we are also entering into a proxy war. So we have to end. And if this proxy war will lead us to again into a cold war, because we don't know how this proxy war will be limited to. This can explode. And if this can explode, then we are all going to pay the price for keeping silent. So I think we need to speak up and speak up for the peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ranjan. And we appreciate your concrete suggestions, and I hope we can talk further about the specific steps to take going forward for peace. So next we'll turn to Dr. Lakhvinder Singh here at the Asia Institute, the Director of Peace and Security Studies, and one of the most informed individuals on security in East Asia. Dr. Singh.
Thank you, sir, for your liberal introduction. I must start with my acceptance, but Professor General Chun told us the situation in the region is not good, that the bar is turning from bad to worse, and the situation is very gloomy. And if something is not done soon, we may have bigger problem at our hands. Many people are not able to understand the complexity of the situation, but the people who know things that the situation is not coming under control and getting bad to worse. Until you don't accept this point, we will not make never make any effort. So acceptance of the reality is the first step towards controlling the war. So far, no attempt has been made to evaluate where we are going, how we are going. So honest evaluation, honest acceptance that things are not going well is a fundamental starting point to control the war from getting from bad to worse. I will make some few points. How can we control the situation? I think the most important point is that we must keep the red lines. Initially, when USA jumped into the war, they said they will provide some small arms support. Suddenly, they started talking about missiles, rockets. Now they have passed a new act through which they will be able to provide bigger arms. So it means US is already involved in the war. So in one way, you can say with this kind of involvement, with this kind of armament to Ukraine, so just to whom they are trying to fool, Russia will not be fooled, once Russia decide enough is enough, they must be get provoked and attack US itself. Because the kind of weapon they are providing to Ukraine is not small arms, it's kind of a serious weapon system. And with this new law, Land and Lease Act, US will be able to provide much more serious weapon to Ukraine. So then I don't know to whom Russians, Americans are trying to fool or make believe that they are not into the war. They have knowingly, unknowingly, they already have stepped into the war. So this is a big problem now. Red lines has not been observed. In the name of maintaining freedom, in the name of something, so proxy war, as Professor Rajan told us, proxy war is going on. And now even the proxy war is almost crossed over. Now direct war is almost happening. So this is the crucial point that we should emphasize to Americans that no, you must keep red lines. Of course, you want to support, you have your geostrategic interest, you have your geopolitical interest in the region, so you can support whatever parties you want, but this is the limits. But now, with more and more weapon system pouring into Ukraine, the red line has not been kept. And that is a crucial point, burning point for people like us who are advocating peace. So this is a crucial point. So far, we, the friends of USA, are not speaking. This is the responsibility of the friends of USA, country like India, country like South Korea. We should tell Russia, we should tell USA to control itself, control its armament process until Americans don't control their armaments. We are stepping into a very serious problem. So it is a responsibility, Japan, Korea, India, other countries which are friends to USA and want USA well, and they should tell them, no, you must remain within the control, self-discipline, self-control and self-limits are very important. So far, all the red lines have been crossed, and more weapons are pouring into the Ukraine. General Chun, by logic, this war should have ended now. Russians have expanded their military effort. Ukraine have already spent their internal resources, but war is still going on. Why? War is going on because Americans are pouring into more and more money, more and more weapons. But this is so illogical. This is so unwanted, This is not natural war. So we have to, the friends of USA have to take initiative. So this is the first case I'm going to make. The friends of USA, like India, Korea, Japan, other USA, European countries should tell, no, man, we cannot do like this. We cannot keep in the name of freedom, in the name of something. You can keep more and more serious weapons pouring into Ukraine. It will have serious consequences for the war effort. Second point which I want to make is that fake media has been doing more damage than anything else. We must control fake media. So far, it has succeeded in demonizing Russia and China and make USA look all good. And some demonization of Russia and China can cost us World War III. And so, second effort, we should focus on controlling fake media in our own countries, in Korea, in Russia, in India, in Japan, everywhere. We have to write us to fake stories. We have to try to demonize China, demonize Russia, and try to make a god of USA. That should be curbed. We have to make systematic effort to control the fake media. Fake media is controlling a lot of, it's creating fake narratives, fake description of the war, fake victories. Everything is fake. And that kind of thing, which one-sided stories are being presented to the world, can cost us World War III. So what we can do, again, I propose that friends of USA should try to control the role of fake media. They are doing more damage than anybody else. The fake narrative is being created that as if Ukraine is winning and Russia is losing, and that Russia will be defeated in a few days' time. That Russia is a demon, Russia is evil, something like this, and completely USA is a god, something like this. So this kind of narrative can cost us too much. So we are not making any effort so far, but we have to come into the picture and do something about fake media. Third is about economic sanction. Economic sanction to some extent is good. Some extent is good, but when they are imposed carelessly, they can cause war. So far, Russia's vital economic interest, even China's vital economic interest, has been completely ignored. Sometimes this kind of extreme economic sanction, instead of controlling war, can lead to major war. Again, here I propose of a country like Japan, Korea, and India, other country, friends of US should tell USA that there's a little limit to which you can use economic sanction to control the behavior of other countries. Because sometimes instead of controlling the behavior, they can provoke it. They can lead to war. I fear strongly this kind of economic sanctions which USA is trying to impose on Russia may lead to third world war. So here also use of economic sanctions to limitless, capacity is dangerous. Dangerous. We must control. Tell them that no, this is not good. To some extent, we can use them to control the behavior of Russia. But now things are crossed the red line. Here also, I think we have a very serious major problem. This weaponization of economic sanction is dangerous for us, all of us. We have to pay the whole price if we don't do something about it. Most important is the bipolarization. Somehow USA is trying to bipolarization. Either you with us or you with Russia. So bipolarization is dangerous. It can lead to divide the world into two parts: Russia, pro-USA. So this is dangerous. Multipolarization is a guarantee for peace. But now attempt is being made that either you are with USA, either you are with us. This is not good. Multipolar world is a guarantee for peace. But now somehow USA is trying to push more and more country join us, or if you are not with us, you are with Russia. So this kind of a dangerous tendency shown by USA is dangerous. Again, we should come into the picture, try to help. No. Multipolarization is a big guarantee. Some countries which don't want to support USA's war effort, it's okay. They should be allowed to remain neutral to some extent. Otherwise, we are heading towards very dangerous situation. If world is divided in two parts, Russia, pro-Russia, anti-Russia, then how can you manage to control the war? We are stepping into the war, so it means we must make sure that this doesn't happen. This is very dangerous. Suppose the world is divided into Russia, Iran, North Korea, and China, USA, one side. Sorry, Russia is one side, other countries one side. Then we are already into the war. So bipolarization is a serious problem. So my last point is that we must not see the world into a black and white. We cannot say that either you're with us, you're not with us. So we have to make sure that the multipolarity of the world, current world order, should be maintained. But somehow USA is forcing its friends to join them. In short term, looks good, but in the long term, it can lead to war. It can hurt USA also. Multipolar world is best guarantee for peace, best guarantee for maintaining a flow of information, flow of security interest, flow of economic interest. It's very good for the world. But so somehow this USA is ignoring this. So these are my main points. I think as a whole, USA has to control its behavior if we really don't want to get into the Third World War. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Singh, for, I would say, both very honest and a quite brave effort to actually address some of the most difficult and sometimes taboo subjects. And so as an American working on some of these issues myself, I want to make just a few comments in context. So first, regarding the issue of the arms race, and arms for Ukraine, there, I think, are some serious mistakes that have been made on the American side. The two. The first, in the case of what weapons have been made available to the Ukraine, that there are many allies, including South Korea, who feel that weapons are being given to Ukraine, which they don't have access to themselves. And this has caused significant tensions and further exacerbated the possibility of global arms race. Secondly, there's a serious danger that even if World War Three, it's not about Ukraine per se, that a massive arms race, including, say, unleashing South Korea, Japan into nuclear weapons or possible nuclear and other weapon systems competition in East Asia. I mean, a country like Japan could easily produce 10,000 nuclear weapons. I mean, it would not be difficult. So we should be extremely difficult. We should be extremely careful about crossing the Rubicon. Secondly, on the issue of fake news, I want to say this is an extremely serious issue, and all sides are engaging in all sorts of disinformation. It's, in a way, it's totally predictable, but I think sometimes people are not aware of just how high the risks are. And the issue of sanctions now, several people have mentioned, so I won't say more, except to say, as we know from Pearl Harbor and other cases, obviously sanctions can lead directly to war as opposed to stopping wars. So forgive me for the little commentary in the middle there, but let's continue on to Dr. Ararat Konstantinian, Research Fellow, Institute of Oriental Studies, National Academy of Sciences of Armenia, for his insights. Last time, I remember some of the most thoughtful comments, his insights concerning the current situation regarding Russia and China.
Thank you, Dr. Emmanuel. It's an honor to be again in Asia Institute, and my regards to all my colleagues joining us to this event. Actually, I would like to talk about briefly about the situation created in Eastern Europe that also Mr. Ranjan actually talked about mostly all the things that I wanted to talk about, but I will try not to repeat too much. But you know, we are stressing on just the event of the war created between Ukraine and Russia, but we are not paying attention at the reason why this war has created even before 2014. Excuse me, can someone? There is a noise coming.
Can you whoever that is, please check and turn off your microphone.
Yeah, better. Even before the circumstances that started, it's after the Warsaw Pact, even there has been a spoken deal between, not a signed agreement between Russians, Soviet Union and the US that NATO will not expand to Eastern Europe and even to Europe. But as we've seen, several Eastern European countries joined NATO, and after that, this atmosphere started. We know how Brzezinski and Kissinger before they wrote about the importance of Ukraine for Russia, because if Russia doesn't have Ukraine, that Brzezinski puts very clearly in his chessboard book, the Grand Chessboard, that if Russia is isolated from Ukraine, it means that Russia will be isolated from not only from Europe, but from the world arena. This is very important point that we are not stressing here, that from the Russian side, what they consider, even they say Kievian Russia, they consider Kiev have been historically part of Russia, and in reality, their culture, Russian culture, and their religious culture started from Kiev. So I'm mentioning this because it has importance for Russia to not let Ukraine to be on the European side or under the European influence. This is the Russian version. But the other side, what I'm mentioning, that United States were being very irresponsible by pushing Eastern European countries, South Caucasian countries like Georgia, and somehow Armenia was trying to keep the balance. But what is irresponsible here that you are not turning them EU member, you are not turning them a NATO member, but you are pushing them to war, and just you are helping them with arms and money. This is not responsible superpowers action, you know, because like you are damaging the whole countries. And I'll give another example in Middle East, where I was born and I come from originally. For example, the Syrian war, like created another version of Orange Revolution. Later, this military jihadists came and you started somehow to give them arms and finance them. And later, just suddenly this war creates out of nothing, and it becomes a bloody war for already more than 10 years. I mean, this is not a cowboy movie, you know. We have to deal with the world more serious. A million people are homeless now. More than 500,000 people are dead. You know, my cousins are in different parts of the world now. They were living a constant life. I'm not saying Syria was the best country in the world, either, not Armenia or Ukraine, but people were living a normal life. But because you want to do a regime change, what catastrophe is created? I mean, this is what I will come to, why I think peace is not possible, because one side is trying to keep the unilateral hegemony, and again, it's kind of childish act that he's not fine with some other superpowers to become also in international relations and in global policy to be players like Russia and China and India even. This last period, we are seeing India is trying to be more separate superpower in international relations and raise its voice. This is very effective and very positive move from India, I believe, because I'm a believer of multi-power system can only bring lasting peace. Of course, we will not have lasting peace, never happened in the world, but in this period, only multilateral system can bring this third world ambition to meddle a little bit, and the stability can be for long term and short term if also multilateral system brings non-alignment countries together. And in this sense, I think India has the biggest role to perform. For example, if this non-alignment group of countries come together in Asia particularly, and if India can lead this non-alignment bloc, I believe that that will bring positive remarks for global peace at this moment, because American side, the US will not stop, and China and Russia, they will not give up their ambitions. I'm not saying whether it's positive or negative, but they do have the right to become a superpower, such as US, such as Germany, such as France. I mean, geopolitically, Russians are trying to create and unite this Orthodox world. They're trying to create nationalism with religion. The Orthodoxy is leading. Chinese are, they brought this Confucianism, we know, in this late decades. I mean, I believe that this new nationalism that is coming, I believe if it's not against each other and if they can cooperate together, as Mr. Ranjan said, I believe that the most positive issue we will face in this coming new mechanism, as Mr. Ranjan said, the new mechanism now we are seeing are the superpowers with nationalist ideology, but not confrontationist nationalism. They are not trying to expand. Yes, of course, every superpower, they want to expand its interest, as China is doing with the One Belt, One Road, but the other countries can advantage from that as well. Same as Russia is creating in its region and in South Caucasus and in Middle East also, that they are trying to create an ideology of nationalism based on Orthodoxy religion issue, which is beneficial for the minorities. I mean, during the war, I would like to mention the stress on this, that during the war in Syria, for example, the Russian side defended the territories that are lived with Christians, for example, Armenians also, the Arab Christians also. So this nationalistic tendency, I believe, at this moment, if it doesn't go to confrontation like happened in First War and Second War, I think this is a good mechanism that other countries, other civilizations could rise again. For instance, in this non-alignment bloc, I believe South Korea has also a lot of positive situation can create in this alignment, rather than asking for to stick to a lot of to the US or to become more stronger in alignment with US. Because if you are becoming now more stronger allied with this group or with that group, you are intentionally or unintentionally, you are advocating war. You are advocating third war. So if this team today is momentum for peace and stability, I believe that South Korea, like India, should have their own ideology and raise their position in international relation and world policy, because they do have all that circumstances and tools. I have lived in Korea, and I have lived in China and Russia as well. But for Korea, I think that they do have advanced economy, they do have rich culture, they do have great people. I mean, why shouldn't Korea have their own ideology and be a player in world arena, rather than to be seen all the time ally with the US? I'm not saying that they should break up their relation with US, no, but same with Japan, but Japan has a smaller capacity. But I believe South Korea, they can play that role in non-alignment region, and also they spread their culture as well, not only their technology and not only their Samsung and their other technological brands, but they have very instinct culture, they have very instinct cuisine. So why all the time it comes to my mind that why Chinese food is spread all over the world, but not Korean food, for example. So there is in China, in Shenyang, Korean community, there is one street that you can have all that Chinese, Korean restaurants and Korean KTVs. But why they do not spread it all over the world? Because they are not creating their own ideology. This is my desire that multilateralism, multilateralist system can only stop this fractured world and bipolar confrontational two big sides. And this will enrich also the world, because why this conflicts are creating and small wars around the region. I mentioned that US trying to keep its hegemony, but US today has also its problems. Last time when Biden has arranged a conference on democracy, he mentioned in words that US also have problems with its values and ideologies. We are seeing some incidents of racism rising, even not too much, but we are seeing in US after the Black Lives Matters and etc., after some economic problems arise, because we know that in developed countries, especially in US, the population for already more than 50 decades, they are used to live good life. And if economy starts to go down, I think racial problems will rise there. And I believe American dream is over, but America shouldn't go with war with other countries to keep its dream, hanged somewhere in the wall. I believe America also, the US also should create another, I'm not saying totally another system, I'm not saying to bring socialism to US, but they should try to create another system also to be in competence with these new ideologies that Russians and Chinese brought, and even Indians today, they have sentiments of nationalism, which I believe it's a positive sign that is related with ideology, identity, respecting the other civilization, but not going to confrontation and deny the other civilizations. So, of course, also, as I would like to mention, during coronavirus, we saw that UN is not working. Sometimes I think that why those people are working there and getting salaries, for what reason? So I believe that Security Council formation also should change, not only the five superpowers, big powers, should have the right to veto, because this is against democracy. Why other countries will not have the veto? Let's bring that all of them, they could put their voice, not in a system of veto, but voices. If we are, let's say, if we are talking about the Syrian war or the Ukrainian war, let all the countries, member of the UN countries, put their voices and their decisions as well, because it's turning out that before Iraq invasion, that time was that crazy invasion, US and China were not strong, so they couldn't stop US from invading Iraq. But in Syria, they were they put veto in both Syria and China. They put veto on NATO involvement in Syria. So it shouldn't be that this superpower is now stronger and the other one is weaker. So they can do whatever they want in United Nations. So I believe that Security Council issue should be changed. And we have seen that United Nations were paralleled in very serious situation during the COVID, and superpowers started to act. Let's say Russia and China, they went for help to Europe, and America couldn't help in providing medications and masks and etc. So where is UN? This is a big question. So everybody started to work privately, and for that reason, they politicized. You know, it's became like like a show. Oh, China helped Italy and Russia helped. I don't know why. I'm not against helping. Of course, it's a big crisis, but I believe everybody should have helped each other under the big umbrella of United Nations. So I believe that for bringing momentum, as I have mentioned, multilateralism must arise and be seen in world arena, and United Nations must be reformed to bring long-term peace and stability.
Well, thank you, Dr. Kostanian, and I really do appreciate, as the, I guess, American representative at this event, your very thoughtful statement on perhaps the most important factor for creating momentum for peace, which is encouraging intelligent, thoughtful, long-term strategic planning on the part of the United States, which obviously plays a very important role in what's happening today. Includes many very thoughtful people who know what's happening in the world, but who have often been haven't played the role they could have, either by choice or by circumstances, in the discussion so far. So now that we have a broad variety, a buffet of perspectives, and also possible approaches or steps that can be taken, I think we'll just take just a moment, and each of our participants maybe comment briefly, 5-10 minutes on what points have been raised that you think are particularly significant or worthy of notice, starting with General Chun.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Those were great insights, but unfortunately, the reality is that we live in a world where big powers dominate the little countries. And although Korea is evolving and growing, we still have our challenges. And the biggest challenge, like all of us, is internal. Internal problems outweigh the tsunami of bigger problems that will hit us in the near future. So although the ideas are noble and the efforts are required, we're in a very difficult situation. At the same time, we can't give up. So I feel that what we must do is try to continue as best as we can, and remember that for evil to succeed, The only thing that is required is that good men give up. And so I believe that efforts like these must continue and need to continue so that we can do whatever we can for those who cannot speak for themselves or represent themselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much, General Chun, for that thoughtful, brief, concise, and touching comment at this critical moment. So, Professor Deepak, your perspective.
Yeah, I think I agree and go by most of the comments made by fellow panelists. And the one which struck me most is I call it that messed up red lines by all the parties. U.S. messed up its red lines. As far as the expansion of NATO is concerned, I think it's seriously at default. And Russia, of course, by using massive force, also messed up its red line. And Ukraine also by acting as an outpost, of NATO or US, it's also messed up its red lines. So therefore, I think all the parties involved in the conflict at this point in time, so they have really messed up with their lines, and they need to revisit and then try to renegotiate, where to stop and where to go ahead. And unless and until they don't do this, I don't think we will see a silver lining at the end of the tunnel. And second point, of course, I agree, the multipolarity is a wonderful thing. And India, of course, is moving in that direction, and all of our efforts are in that direction. And of course, China also champions multipolarity, but the problem is whether it provides space to other emerging economies in the region or not. So I think here is the problem, and the problem is really serious. Though China clearly, advocates the philosophy of true multilateralism. If you have noticed nowadays, they have been talking about true multilateralism since 2019, I would say, which of course is inclusive, which is built on the basis of mutual respect, which is extremely good for all the nations, especially takes care of the interest of the global south, according to China. And it's not like the multilateralism preached by some of the people or those who want to adhere to that so-called hegemony. But as far as India's engagement in the region, especially in Southeast Asia, or even larger, we can say Indo-Pacific concerns. So China doesn't want to share the space. So that's why I'm saying that it's not the question of yesteryear's hunky-dory relationship between India and China, or what Rajiv mentioned about putting this mechanism upside down. I don't think it will work, because if a country sees that balance of power has shifted in its favor and it has bridged technological gaps with the superpower, established superpower, I think it is going to challenge other emerging powers in the vicinity. Forget about them. I mean, it is challenging United States at this point in time. So the established hegemony. So therefore, multilateralism, to some it may work, and to some I think it will not work. Though it is a wonderful thing, and I think India adheres to this notion, and it wishes or desires to be one of the poles of multilateral world. So we still have to see like how it will go in future. That's exactly when India's assertive engagement in Southeast Asia or the Indo-Pacific and South of China has been so trying to check it in South Asia only, by way of his proxy Pakistan, or maybe even trying to incite some other smaller neighbors. So that is a problem, and also trying to create trouble in the line of actual control, which has been quite peaceful, I would say, all these years. But here again, I will argue that it is owing to that lost equilibrium and understanding because of the power shifting. Otherwise, it would not have been as it used to be that during, say, first 2 or 3 decades, ever since we established these joint working groups on border with China since, I would say, 1981 or so. So it will work for some and it will not work for others. But anyway, multilateralism propounded by others, so China sees them as small circles, whether it is AUKUS, whether it's Quad, whether it is various other smaller mechanisms. So I think I'm still apprehensive, which model of governance it will suit the world. But of course, I think each country, whether big or small, so they have to take care of their red lines. If they don't, I think then we are messing up with various things around us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Deepak, for your thoughtful comments there on the greater consequences of the current crisis. So let's turn briefly to Dr. Singh for his perspectives here in Korea. Dr. Singh, are you there? Lakhvinder, I don't know. Well,
okay. Thank you,
you're
man.
there.
I'm sorry. I would like to make my point that so far, USA allies have been overwhelmed by USA assertiveness to follow USA decisions. They have very little say in the decision-making process, but they have to pay the price if something went wrong. But I think time has come when USA allies should become more assertive and try to force USA that they should take the decisions in collectiveness. Until if there's a war, countries like Korea, Japan, even India simply cannot escape the consequences. So, but now, for the time being, they are not being consulted at all in the decision-making process. So USA is just forcing us to follow them, my way or the other way, highway. So this is not good. Time has come when Korea, India, Japan should become more assertive. They should ask for more saying. When the decisions are being taken, it should be taken in the true sense of the collective alliance. So far, we are just being forced to do this, do that. That's not good. That's not good. USA media is spreading lies, but we in the region is sitting just doing nothing. Doing nothing. More and more weapons are being sent to Iran. Ukraine. We are doing nothing. How can this be possible? If there's a war, just imagine if there's a war, Korea, Japan will be immediately under attack from China or Russia. How can they pay such a high price for they have not done anything wrong? So now the decisions are being taken, decision process is made. So now it's a time when we should ask USA, no, now you're taking a very sensitive and very, very crucial decision which can affect the future of the mankind. You must consult us. So until USA is forced to work within a framework, this will get into more and more dangerous, because most of the time when USA take a decision, most of the time they take a decision keeping their own interest in mind. They rarely think that how it will impact Korea, how it will impact Japan, how it will impact Southeast Asia, how it will impact India. Then, but if there's a war, we are the country, Russia, Korea, Japan will be immediate target. Right? USA will be the last target. Countries like Korea will immediate. Chinese forces will pour into Seoul within a matter of few hours. So how can we keep quiet? Now is the time when we should be assertive that a decision-making process should be collective, that we should be consulted when decisions are being taken. So far there is no collective decision-making mechanism. So I propose that if we really want Third World War to be avoided, we should become more assertive, we should become more authoritative, that this kind of decision which the US is taking now can impact the future of mankind for long time to come. So far, something very wrong, USA very rarely, USA has defined the objective of war single-handedly. Nobody knows why USA want to do that. But we, as a part of the alliance system, we are equally responsible for the consequences. This is not good. This is not good. I strongly propose my friends in Korea and Japan, as well as in India, that they should become more and more assertive, more and more asking questions. How come you take this decision? We are part of the alliance system. The basic understanding of alliance demands that all the allies who are part of the alliance system should be consulted, should be taken into confidence before the decision is taken. But can we say honestly that Korea is being consulted, Japan is being consulted, Southeast Asia is being consulted, Singapore is being consulted, or Australia is being consulted? No, nobody is consulted. Russia, US is taking decisions unilaterally. How and we will be asked to pay the price? So I propose today this conference should start asking collectively that if USA really want all of us to support their decisions, support their war efforts, they should take a decision collectively that all other countries in the region should be taken into confidence, that there should be a new mechanism should be created through which all other countries, all other friends of USA can contribute, can at least say. There should be proper mechanism through which countries like Korea, Japan, India, Australia, Singapore can put them advice or put their suggestion into the system, so that if there is a terrible situation, we can collectively take a decision. So this is my suggestion today, that time has come that when the friends of USA or partner of USA should start asking for more say in the decision-making process, so that something wrong can be avoided. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Singh, for your very important point about decision-making globally. I would just maybe as a footnote say, as an American I was in Washington, D.C. until 2 years ago. And so from my perspective, it's not merely that the United States decision-making process doesn't include allies, but that increasingly it doesn't include Americans, experts on international relations and security. It's become a much smaller group of people making decisions. And I would say that's a serious flaw on the part of the part of the United States. But I see similar trends in other countries, including China, including Korea for that matter, in which increasingly decisions of incredible significance are made by a very small number of people. And that really is an important point in getting a positive cycle for peace, is to get more people involved in that decision-making process. So for our closing comments, we return to Dr. Kostanian in Armenia. Please.
Because we know that famous sentence that where is no dialogue, there is war. This is a famous word. But I believe that not only NATO, as I have mentioned, that it must form, but I believe that the super global power must immediately sit around table. Russia, China, US, India, these big powers, and they should understand that we cannot go like this with hybrid wars. You know, we are ruining countries out of sudden, you know, because before Ukrainian war, those people, again, like Syria, were living normal lives. I was talking with my friends, and suddenly just erupts. Yes, they had tensions in the eastern part between the Ukrainians, we know from the 2014, but you know, I call this a war, but at the same time, I call this a fake war. We were talking about media, but I call this a fake war because this is not in reality Ukraine's war. This war is between two big powers, same as it happened in Armenia over Nagorno-Karabakh Republic between Armenian side and Azerbaijani side. Yes, it's our war, it's our territory, but when you look at the bigger frame, it's a war between NATO and Russia. So we do have the right, small powers, developing powers, we have the right to push these superpowers to, as Dr. Deepak mentioned, to have their red lights, because out of a sudden countries are ruined, families are ruined, kids have died, you know, we deserve a better life. This is not World War I, or even this is not Stone Age, you know. So, so one aspect is multilateralism can stop that, as I have mentioned. And another mentioned that the dialogue I have mentioned. And on the social level, I believe that even the media and social media, it shouldn't be run and controlled by one side, because this is also a very strong tool of manipulation, and it's kind of a new weapon. You know, I've seen a cartoon picture that today's bombs are Facebook, Instagram, and not the bomb itself. So because we are experts, yes, we can read books very quickly. We can read 10, 15 articles on a website or a newspaper in a few seconds, but ordinary people who go to work, who are, for example, a dentist, or who has someone a shop, he doesn't have the time to read all those newspapers to analyze which news is the fake one, which one is the real one, which one, you know, they don't have the time. So I believe that this media regulation, and especially social media, should be, again, as economy and ideology now is in multi-power, multilateral world we are trying to reach. I believe this media and social media platform also must be in the same way multilateralized, because as I mentioned, even if I don't want to give names just to not to be against someone, but for example, we know these tricks. When you post something, they block you, you know. When the other side doesn't block you. During the war, I mean, we have this experience many times. I've been blocked out of a sudden. I didn't spread any fake news. I just put a picture of a hero and I was blocked on Facebook. So this is not fair. So this issue also must come to regulation, because in social media, the ordinary people, if will not read the Asia Institute article, they will read what is written on Facebook, you know. So I believe that regulation also must be changed, or must be more strict. I don't know, I'm not the expert of that, but it's not fair that if the US dominates that social media corporations, they can give more chances to their allies and not to the other side. So this is my last words.
Most certainly words of wisdom. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for joining us for this extremely
Sir, we
thoughtful
can give,
discussion.
we can give some time to audience also. There's some people who want to
Oh,
speak.
sure. If anybody has closing comments out in the audience, or questions, we would certainly entertain them.
Yeah, can I talk a couple of minutes?
Please.
Yeah. First of all, I am so delighted to learn that Mr. Kostanian has been stayed in Seoul for many years previously. And Now the Russian invasion into Ukrainian territory is global concern. Reacting to the Russian invasion, the incoming president said that South Korea, including himself, will support the Ukrainian people in their fight against Russia. Yoon, president-elect, has affirmed that Seoul-Washington ties will be the central axis of his foreign policy, which is what nearly 90% of South Koreans want. And with its GDP now among the world's 10 largest and its military power in the top 6, South Korea's place in the world is no longer shrimp-sized. Seoul's actions should reflect this. It is no longer a question of choice of whose side to take. It's a matter of facing up to responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Very good. Well, then I think let me just make a short concluding comment. First, thank you everybody for joining us this evening for this very, very significant discussion. Second, I hope we can have another one in the very near future, because these situation is not getting easier and it's not getting safer. So such intense, thoughtful discussion, bringing in more people. I want to say on the case of China, for the record, that I tried to include Chinese scholars in this and previous discussions, and they said they could not participate. So it's not that we ignored the Chinese. I don't have any connections in Russia, so I couldn't really pull that off, but my guess is it would have been similar. So it's not that we're against a larger dialogue. We hope we can make it real in the future. Thank you again, everybody, for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you all very, very soon at a similar discussion on this topic or its related ramifications here in Korea, in India, in the United States, and around in Armenia and around the world. Thank you again.